All right. Um, let me know if the audio, same as usual, let me know the audio levels are okay and that it's all coming through. All right. And then, yeah, then I'll get started. Oh, well, probably wait around for a couple of minutes. Yeah. Sounds really loud. Okay. Yep. Q&A. I will wait a couple of minutes just for people to join. And yeah, see where we're at. I'll be answering any questions. I've got some questions that patrons have given me. A few announcements, but if there's anything you want to ask, but like I said, I'll wait till exactly 6 p.m. UK time before I get started, and then we'll see where we're at, see what's going on. Greetings, James. Hope you're having a good Saturday. It's been pretty good so far, and also hello to Gerard Perry. Yeah. So, any questions in the chat? Or anything you'd like me to cover? Anything you'd like me to comment on? Anything like that? Let me know. It's all good. Life's good. It's all groovy. I can somehow hear the Shy music. Sounds like it's really loud to me, but I think it's fine. Okay. I'm gonna get started. I usually prioritize the ones in the chat. I'll do announcements now, and I'll do them at the end as well. So the main announcement, so the books wise, is that the Call to God: Spiritual Introduction to Christianity is out. That's with Aeon. There is my collection of short stories, A Man Crying in the Street. That is on Amazon. And this should be with Aeon sometime in probably 2026 now. An esoteric introduction to Christianity, which I'm writing with Aaron French, who many of you will know from the show. The other big announcement is that I have been asked to give a talk at the Echo Sophia convention, which is happening in Glastonbury from the 6th to the 8th of June at the Assembly Rooms. If you Google Echo Sophia, as in John Michael Greer's blog, Greer will also be there. Then, as in, this is the conference that's based around his blog for the first time ever. I will be there on the Sunday, on the last day, on the 8th, giving a talk about spiritual seeking and suffering. So if you want to come along and hear that, please do. Right, who's the guest that impacted you? So I'll start with the ones in the chat. Who is the guest who impacted me the most personally? That's actually an easy answer, and it ties in with another question that I've been asked, which is the guest that impacted me the most personally is Darren Allen, because he sincerely helped me, and his work sincerely helped me get out of a serious slump. It was what some sort of seekers would call the first real step, I think, after years, or we could say the first real punch to the stomach. So that, but if you were thinking more like an episode and more like content, I mean, there's too many to. But as you're saying personally, then yeah, it's definitely Darren Allen. But that ties into another question that someone asked, which is what happened to the Darren Allen interview episode, which there was actually 3 of, I believe, 2 or 3. The person said it was one of their favorites. A lot of people have asked this, and basically Darren Allen was taking down all podcasts from the internet, and so mine actually stayed longer than the other ones. But Yeah, they've been taken down because he wanted them. He wanted them taken down. Do I recommend Arthur Machen short stories? Yeah, I mean, where to start with Machen? Maybe the Penguin collection is great. There's also this very affordable and very beautiful Oxford hardback edition, which is yellow. That's that's a really good place to start. The what is it called? The one about the Grail. The Secret Glory, I think it's called. Arthur Machen is a great place to start. A lot of people will recommend N as well, I believe it is. But yeah, I recommend his short stories. I think that horror generally works best as short stories. Lengthy, even novellas of a horror type tend to drag on. Horror needs to be left. It needs a lot of space to breathe. Any chance of a review of Ulysses? I mean, maybe in time, but the thing with that is I would want to read the whole thing, so it's the case of reading whatever. How I do have a copy of it, and it flows really well. But and also there's a case of I want to say at least say something new, and I don't think I'd be able to really with Ulysses. It's very tough to take on those huge works that people have commented on time and time again, far better than you kind of ever will, really. Any specific works I would recommend from Darren Allen? I would start with The Fire Sermon, which I've done a review of on the channel, and then move to Self and Unself, but all of his works are great. What is the most surprising thing you have learned? It's probably more of a personal thing, probably something to do with thoughts and how thoughts arise, or what it is to be. I doubt it's anything conceptual. And it's very difficult to think back and think what surprised me at the time. Have I had any paranormal experiences? I've had spiritual experiences. If you mean more like ghosts and ghoulies, and did I see something like a dog man or something, then no, I don't think I've ever had anything like that. But if you mean the general run the gamut, then certainly when I was much deeper into the occult, I mean, I was bringing them about, but I don't really talk about them too much because they're just experiences, and actually the more you focus on the experience, you sort of just get drawn into just wanting more of that, and realizing that doesn't really do all that much. It's not all that difficult to in the words of someone like Richard Sylvester, actually, I've been reading recently, it's not all that difficult to bring about these kinds of experiences. Go chant a mantra for 4 hours straight, or go do some strange type of meditation, or go find someone who can do a pretty potent ritual, and you'll have them if you want them, but then you're left with like, well, does that really answer anything? I've had them, and you get past them, really. Because then it's kind of like, I don't know, if the meaning of your life was eating food or something, you'd eventually think, well, what kind of different type of food is ever going to answer any of the questions? How many classic horror novels exist? Dracula, Frankenstein, not many. The horror canon, it's really small, and as soon as you step outside of the horror canon, it generally is usually fairly half-rate, and not amazing. I mean, just stick to that. Do I have a dream guest I would like to interview? The dream guests I had, I mean, were like Cormac McCarthy would have been one, but the dream guests I have are people who really I just want to have a conversation with, I think, on my own time. I mean, what would I even say to McCarthy? There are guests that I sort of am struggling to find contact details for that are still around, but there's no one that stands out to such a degree that I can say like that would be the absolute dream. There's no huge figures, because the reason I'd want to interview a guest, the reason I do interview guests, is because there's something about the ideas that I want to be that I think is there to be said. And so in terms of some of the big names out there, they've a lot of these who are relatively intellectual people, or even very smart people who have been on podcasts. I mean, they've said what they have to say, unless it's a bad interviewer. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, one person I'm trying to find the contact details for is Stephen Walensky, who is a student of Nisarka Data, who I'm reading a lot of at the moment. So that's been, that's as close to a dream guest as I'd get at the moment. Howdy, James. You've recently mentioned moving away from pessimism. Has this been more of a falling through the bottom experience, a la Dante, more of a leaving behind, or a clearing away? I spoke about this on the Leaf Box podcast, which I probably didn't, put around too much. But really, it was from the Barry Long thing, as much as close friends are sick of hearing about it. It really was from this question of, have you suffered enough? You haven't suffered enough. How much suffering is going to be enough? Not that negates the pain of the world, but how much suffering is enough? And this was actually relates back to the earlier question of which guest personally, affected me the most. It was Darren Allen, because he really led me into this and also prompted a lot of this. And so the question of, has this been more falling through the bottom, leaving behind, or a clearing away? I think when this happens, the ego, whatever you want to call the ego, will latch on. This certainly happened to me. So you have to sort of, I had a deep realization that no amount of suffering is going to be enough to get out or to answer anything. There's no longer any questions there. It's misery masturbation. It's misery for its own sake. The pessimist people, bleaker than thou, will forever search for more and more bleakness in texts and authors. And if you want to go to the end game of that, just go to Mindlander, right? I mean, Philip Mindlander really is the end game of all that. But have you suffered enough? Is it enough? When is all that going to be enough that you can give it up? You're just entertaining yourself with suffering as if there is no other qualities to the world. And so the ego, of course, doesn't really like this, because it's great food for the ego to suffer. It sort of very much bolsters it. And so, I had this great sort of, you could say, a clearing away or seeing a clearance, but the ego will latch onto anything it can. It just wants to survive. And so during that experience, I had a great high, which is something to watch out for, because it's, with every high there is a low. So the ego latched on, which gave the great high, which then went to a much deeper low than I'd ever been. And then it just dissipated. It didn't go to neutrality. It went into, it just kind of was, and I could see things much clearer than they were. But the pessimistic thinking is a falsely deep hole. It's really not going to get you anywhere. And I think this whole idea of giving advice to young people, which of course the very idea of giving advice to young people in itself inherently can be understood that they're not going to take it, otherwise we wouldn't need to, right? There'd be a progression, there'd be an aggrandizement of wisdom, which there doesn't seem to be. But if I was ever asked that question, I would say really try hard to look very acutely at what your relationship to misery is. Does it really have any tenable position that isn't just the conflation of misery, pessimism, suffering with wisdom, right? This idea that someone such as Schopenhauer, someone such as Mindlander, Chiron, Land, Berger, take your pick, that just because that you don't know how bad it is, you don't know how biting and awful life is, that doesn't in itself, just because someone points out the dead deer that's been hit by the car doesn't really mean they're wise, because they've pointed out some seemingly negative aspect of life. There literally can't be creation without any form of friction, and so if you want to consider that evil or negative or destruction, then that just has to be for there to be creation at all. And in the exact same sense, you could point out the deer, you could point out the beautiful flowers, but then you're entering into that duality and moving away, and eventually, like, what happened really was a dissipation, which took a long time for that full process to run out, and it's still, something is still unspooling there. Jerome once said, what is known as wisdom is ultimately only a perpetual thinking it over, i.e. non-action as first impulse. I don't think I know what he means by that. What is known as wisdom is ultimately only a perpetual thinking it over. Well, I would relate that to something that Gurdjieff says very tongue in cheek, where he says, "What?" Someone asked him in an interview, what in the wisdom when he was sort of infamously known as a mystic around France. They said, "Well, what is it you teach?" And Gurdjieff said, "Well, I teach that when it rains, the pavement gets wet." So that I would say is synonymous with wisdom. Um, I really have moved away from Chiron. Non-action is first impulse. I mean, that's kind of a paradox. Maybe that's fun. I can't really grasp anything there. Nabo 2000 asks, can you give me some recommendations to better understand Christianity as someone new to the faith? I began with C.S. Lewis and Chesterton. Do you have any others which really impacted you? I mean, I should probably make this. I think I should make this clear. I mean, it's sort of in a way, a thorn of embarrassment, a thorn of something seeking. But I don't. I no longer define myself as I no longer identify as a Catholic. That path didn't work out for me. That is as quickly and succinctly as I can say that, is that it just didn't work for me. I can think through 101 different reasons, and there's no animosity there. But as someone who was seeking for so long, it just didn't work. And I could probably speak on different aspects of why, but I don't particularly want to, because there isn't much I can grasp there. And it just, a lot of the majority, as far as I understand it, the majority of adult converts don't really make it past about the year or 2 year mark. That might be me trying to justify something. At least that's the statistics I've heard, but some do make it. They find the truth there. But it didn't work out for me. With that said, asking better to understand Christianity, if you're on about Christianity in so you said you began with C.S. Lewis and Chesterton, great places to begin. There is that sort of leap between, like, right, where do I go from Chesterton that isn't, say, like Aquinas? I would recommend an introduction to theology by, what is his name? He also wrote Theology and Sanity. Those were very good. I mean, I would explore, because there's such a history there, and there's such a tradition that and also in terms of Christianity, like understanding Christianity, I would say if that's the way you're going, then pray and be taken where you need to be taken, because that really is the backbone of that. And don't get too caught up in, I don't know. There's 1,001 different aspects there that I wouldn't even, a good priest, a good community, various other things are all factors in that decision. But I think in terms of the podcast history and what I've been doing on here, I do have to, at a certain point, be honest. I did say this on the Leaf Box podcast. It just, I don't identify that way anymore. It was a very intense 2 years there, and just didn't work out for me, as many things don't. Any recommendations for a deeper dive in the way of the Sly Man from Gurdjieff's teaching? With Gurdjieff, I always recommend a fairly overlooked student of his called Kenneth Walker. Very, very approachable, and will get you away from reading too much and just get you back to the basics of self-remembering. Don't go too far into the Gurdjieff literature, because there is so much there that you can easily do that thing where you sort of miss the moon by looking at the finger pointing at it. If you want to read about Gurdjieff himself, it's very, very fun, but I would stick with Gurdjieff's own writings. Uspensky, Jean de Salzman's book, The Reality of Being, is a masterpiece of spiritual literature. And Kenneth Walker for secondary. But there's so much there. But the idea of the way of the Sly Man, Gurdjieff was playing around with 1,001 things all the time, and the actual, as far as I'm concerned, the actual chronology is very difficult to track at times. Of, you might see this with the theory of the Enneagram, or whether it's the theory of the carbon theory. Whether or not he's stuck to these things is a whole other thing. My favourite horror authors, Ligotti, Lovecraft, um, uh, yeah, Lugosi and Lovecraft, basically. Those are the greats. What about John Gray's pessimism? John Gray leaves me very dry. It all reads very smart, but then I just don't know where to go from it straight after. I've read a lot of John Gray. I mean, John Gray, in a way, thinking back to when I was a very left wing vegetarian type at about 14. My teacher gave me, who I recommended to me, it was very big at the time, a copy of Straw Dogs by John Gray. So in a way, that my serious entry into philosophy, and I still I still rate that book, I think, as a fairly popular work of philosophy. My entry was Straw Dogs by John Gray. Apart from philosophy and art, what other passions do I have? Yeah, cooking. I like working out, like long walks in the park. I like swimming in the sea because I live near the sea. Yeah, and I like just bumbling about, meandering. Yeah. Isn't philosophical pessimism quite separate from misery as a mood, though? Yeah, it most certainly is. But usually the two come together, which is the unfortunate thing. And the people who are into pessimism, it's intriguing to look that the people who are into pessimism, that does usually become an identity, or it becomes at least a quality of their life. Whether or not we're talking about the moods, it certainly becomes the veil through which they look at the world, and it eschews it. And there's a huge difference between suffering and pain. Very roughly, for me, the difference would be, well, for instance, I really don't like the dentist. But the difference between suffering and I mean, it's not even that painful in reality, right? But the difference between suffering and pain would be the difference between the dentist's waiting room and the actual drilling. The drilling is there, is going to be whatever there is. The waiting room is that's where the suffering is. And I think the problem with philosophical pessimism is that it has far more. It is good philosophical pessimism at its best, like Schopenhauer, is pointing out the pain in the world. And I would say that this duality between suffering and pain really is, again, from Darren Allen's books, but is pointing out the pain in the world. And just often find what happens is that a lot of people find that a justification, a self-justification for them to moan and whine and suffer and pile on more suffering than is ever needed, because none is needed. If you see things as they are, then none is needed. But it's a lot. It's very difficult to get to that point, and there'll always be a little bit of this and that popping through. What else have we got here? People recommending books. Steiner Can Help with Christianity. Yeah. Henry James. Favorite passages of poetry. I don't have a memory for that kind of thing, unfortunately. I got introduced to A.E. Houseman by Kevin Hart. We got introduced. Houseman's quite good. I like Rumi. A lot of poetry doesn't do it for me. There's this one poem about this guy who thought he was damned, which was also introduced to me by Kevin Hart, which is great, but I can't remember the name of it. That's probably my favourite, because I mean, also, and of course, there's a poem by Philip Larkin called Love Again, which, just because of its pure bitterness, is fantastic. Question: I'm doing research for my next book. In your professional opinion, how many penises does Cerberus have? 1 or 3? Huh. Yeah. These people out here are asking the big ones. Well, who knows if it's a big one. I'd say 1. I'm going 1. I'm going 2. Why is there something, including the trauma and agony of tens of trillions of sentient beings, rather than nothing? I mean, this is from someone called Der Poop. This is actually an example of what I've been talking about with the pessimism. It's never, rephrase that. Why is there something, including the beauty and splendor of millions and trillions of blades of grass and atoms whirling, rather than nothing. So you see, like, why is it that way? And this is the problem of duality, is that, well, why is this? Okay, you're asking me why is there something? Um, on one hand, why is there something? Pick your poison. Go pick your Genesis story from a religious text. That's all I can say to you. Pick the one that works for you. I don't think any of them are really working for me. I would say it's spontaneous. It seems to come from nothing. Maybe the end game of philosophy is we don't get to know, and this is it. Why is there something rather than nothing? But there is, so it's fun and it's great. There you go. You're asking me, because there is. Um, do you think pessimism arises out of seeing the world as unintelligible, whereas religious people might see it as the mysterious of God? No, I think pessimism certainly see the world as intelligible. It's just that, in terms of the intelligible rationalizing lens they view the world through, um, understands a certain form of the world, which is all the supposed that which is labeled bad, evil, painful, etc. as, why is this? If the question is where does pessimism arise from? Conditioned suffering, bodily tensions, a lot of people being compressed from a very early age. You could say, oh, it's because I see the world honestly. I don't think it is. I've been through the ringer on the pessimism thing. Thoughts on Nabokov? You know, I did that Pale Fire review, and I think Lolita is one of the, just in terms of prose, is just incredible. Nabokov is okay. And other people have said this in response to Nabokov discussions I've had. So this is just not an original thought at all, which is kind of ironic in relation to Nabokov. Technically, a master beyond masterful, right? Technically, Nabokov, not a letter put wrong. But is there any soul? No, not really. Where's the feel? Oh wow, it's like someone has taken a recipe and the ingredients are measured by like the milligram, and there's like 1,000 different ingredients, and you taste it and you're like, man, this is technically the most impressive, I don't know, curry I've ever eaten. But you just get that sense somewhere that they haven't really put any, they've been like immaculately following it, and it just dries me out. I don't see how all the beauty and good in the world can ever balance out something like Unit 731, let alone the sum of all the other abuse and harm. How can it? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't attend to the duality that you're attending to, because this notion of yeah, I mean, for instance, take the most common one, happiness and unhappiness. If you're abiding by that duality, or pain and, let's say, pain and health, or like or dislike, everything you like is really begetting the dislike, and everything you dislike is a lack that is begetting the like. And so this sort of split between good and bad in a Manichaean trying to balance out sense, like, if only what metric are you using for that? Like, okay, Unit 731 is 1,000 bad, and each flower is 0.0001 good. And that is absolutely absurd. So I don't, yeah. I just, what do you want to do? I mean, these are old questions again. Ultimately, like, I think it's always very productive to reduce questions back to basically those sort of big 10 that have always been there. And the question of how all the beauty and the good in the world can ever balance out something like Unit 731, what we're really asking is, why is there evil in the world? And again, I think for creation to be at all, there has to be friction, which means there has to be the negative. There has to be destruction. There has to be that which is also evil. You just can't have it as it is, as all the laws of the world and all the cosmic and universal laws that we abide with. It just can't be any other way. We could say, oh, I can imagine, I can imagine a world where there's, well, can I? I don't think you can. You can't imagine a concept without it begets its negative anyway. I haven't read any Jane Austen. I might be a bit late, but where do you stand on spiritual issues if you're not Catholic? Oh, I love that. So I'm not taking the mic, but I love the putting them together. Where do you stand on spiritual issues if you're not Catholic or a pessimist? What do you do when you're happy, buddy? How do you do anything if you're not Catholic or miserable? What do you do all day? Shit. Where do I stand on spiritual issues? They arise and I deal with them. Spiritual issues. I mean, what issues? Yeah, I mean, still listen to a conscience. I still think there's a conscience. It's just or what we might call a conscience, but the leaps to dogma, I can't do it. Sorry, thoughts on Robert Aikman. I've only read The Wine Dark Sea, and much like much horror stuff, it drags on a little bit. What do you? There's a Reza question. What do you think about Reza saying we're living in the prehistory of intelligence? How the individual will deal with the relation of intelligence? How do I think the individual? I don't know what he means by the prehistory of intelligence. I would assume it has something to do with that Landian capitalism as AI type current. The prehistory of intelligence. I can't do anything with that, not honestly. I don't mean that as no slight to your question. How do you think the individual will deal with the relation to intelligence? I mean, the individual is intelligence. I mean, that seems to be what the agency is. Someone says, you were quite an outspoken Catholic for a while, now you're not. Generally, do you think it's worth going feet first into a practice or potential source of meaning if you find one, even if shortly? Well, on the one hand, I don't think like thinking back, there wasn't really going to be a point when I say like, I don't know if you have a choice with that. So I think feet first is, you can't experience the river with one foot on the bank. You really can't. And so I did go absolutely feet first into Catholicism. And some people would say like, you're going to burn out, which I did. And then back and forth a few times. Do I think it's worth going into? I mean, if that's where you're look, here's what I'd say. And this is going to be in the talk that I give at the Echo Sophia conference as a key part. I think that spiritual seeking is synonymous with honesty. And honesty is only ever as honest as you can be at that point in time as you are at that as that person. And so at that point in time, you know, that was the thing that was working for me. It's a place I'd found myself. And of course you go feet first into it, and then it's a strange one because I'd gone through other things before, whether it's Franz Bardon's work, spent a lot of time with that, or Gurdjieff or Chaos Magic way back in the day, for years and years and years, and I hadn't had the experience of feet first into something as dogmatic, and so the aftermath of that was a much more strange one that was riddled with a lot of emotional stuff that was very difficult to unspool and didn't really need to be there. If the question is it worth going feet first into a practice or potential source of meaning if you find one? The answer is emphatically yes. Like, do it. I mean, Land. One of the great things early Land says is the first thing the philosopher has to overcome is embarrassment. That's a paraphrase, and I think including embarrassment is this thing of like, maybe I won't belong here, maybe this won't go right, maybe this isn't right. But if you find yourself there, if you find yourself being pulled to it, then absolutely just go for it. Yeah. As much as I sympathize with pessimists as life can be quite hard for some of us, I still believe life is essentially good and there's always beauty and good to enjoy. Yeah. 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 How do I feel about Richard Nixon? I've heard that there is an extremely good biography of Richard Nixon. His name has a real ring to it as well, Richard Nixon. Called Richard Nixon: A Life. I've heard that's really good. Really good. Some good anecdotes about Nixon and Kissinger in there. Thoughts on Friedrich, I guess that's actually Georg Junger. Will there be a show on him? I haven't read that book that they released by him, and a lot of people are telling me who are in the Junger sphere that he's really been overshadowed, and there is a lot there. So I'd love to. Just need to find a scholar. I would prefer to imagine better. Okay, this is back on the pessimism thing. Like, this guy wants to be miserable. Der Poop wants to be miserable. I would prefer to imagine better worlds, which would include nothing at all, in my view, which perhaps this world is heading towards anyway, that completely accept this one as it is. It seems like you're downplaying how bad the world is. I mean, how could you imagine a world that has nothing in it? That's not a possibility. I mean, that's just annihilation. Instead, I mean, the key out of your issue is there, rather than completely accept this one as it is. Adyashanti actually says, if you want to suffer, push against what is. There you go. That's all you need to know. There's still pain. There's always going to be pain. There's going to be suffering. I don't know. It's up to you to find out. If you want to keep suffering, then suffer. But sure. Favorite letter of the alphabet. Now this is the big stuff. Yeah. Well, it's probably A. Like the Aleph. It's the big deal, isn't it? Really. I do faintly have that thing where it sort of has feelings on certain things. Like S is very suspicious for me. M and W are very sturdy. Yeah, I mean, the alphabet's pretty good, even though symbolic language ruined everything. Isn't that right, John Zerzan? I have some other questions from patrons. What are your habits of engaging with books? Note systems? Do I write in the margins? Do I revisit them? I don't really write in margins. The only time I've ever underlined or highlighted was if I'm writing essays. My copy of Being in Time is a mess. I don't really take notes. Occasionally I'll write in the margins of the books I'm reviewing for the channel and for guest stuff, just where I'll put a little X. I'm like, this is get a key question from this section. Did I make a conscious effort to grow my vocabulary with flashcards, or did it happen naturally? I found as time goes on that I'm increasingly more suspicious of pushed and forced expansive vocabularies. There's times outside of literature, so I love Thoreau, right? And Thoreau is ridiculous, but he's doing that for style and for literary style and for other reasons. But take for instance someone like Russell Brand and his usage of this kind of convoluted expansive vocabulary for the sake of it, to basically be like, I'm smart. And Jordan Peterson also does the same thing. The really great moment with Peterson and is it Alex O'Connor, where he calls him out because Peterson says Jordan Peterson refers to the Bible as the biblical corpus. He says, the biblical corpus. And Alex O'Connor's like, what do you mean by the biblical corpus? He says, do you mean the Bible? He says, well, yeah. And so you should be suspicious of this. Unless, Heidegger has this defense of this at the start of Being in Time. So there's places for obscurantes. There's places for times when it won't be obscurantes. But most of the time, I'm very suspicious of an expansive vocabulary. And listening back to episodes, I find that basically what I do is I learn a new word and I use it for every episode for the next 20 episodes. And I have about 20 words. Emphatic is a big one of mine. I can't remember I can't notice the rest right now. The other questions here were, are there any watershed moments you can see in the history of the podcast? No, I don't think so. None of the huge ones did anything massive behind the scenes. It's all stayed fairly slow and steady, which is actually what I like, because it means the audience has remained sincere and engaged in the way that I want, and so there hasn't been any like huge explosions of popularity or things like that. Yeah. Critical interviews that significantly changed your worldview. This is also from the Patreon questions. The Gurdjieff one, some of the interviews, what happens is someone will recommend a thinker. And this is actually what happened with the Klagers chat, Ludwig Klager. So, and this is kind of, this is happened a few times, is that someone will recommend a thinker that they want covered. I will go read what I can within bounds, and then find that I actually fall in love with that thinker, and then have the chat, and then read more of that thinker and think, I wish I had the chance again to do the chat. Sometimes happens that way. So like the Klagers one was a big one, and the Gurdjieff one was a big one, and there's a few others in there, but I don't always get the time to read as much. And then they become more of an obsession. Like Gurdjieff was a huge one for that. Critical interviews. Oh no, that one's been done. Any guests or topics I'd like a second go at? I'd like to speak to Abdul Hakim Murad again. That was a real fantastic conversation. I'd like to do more on Ilul. I would still like some sort of longer, or maybe more, just something more on Girard again to keep displacing him out of those bounds that he's found himself in as a thinker. Maybe on the Dostoevsky book that we mentioned, yeah. And then this is the final one. Oh, and I also meant to mention, if you go to cherries.github.io/Hamidix-transcripts, that's cherries with 3 R's. And I'll put this in the chat. It's probably the easiest way. If you go here, there's transcripts for all the episodes now. Big thank you to Lyre. Like seriously huge thank you. It's an insane resource, and everyone, all of us, are sincerely thank you. That's all the transcripts for the episodes. It's like incredible. And the final one from the patrons is, what's the most dense, difficult book you've read? I don't have many real quit outs. I have books that I've stopped because I'm like 40 pages in, and it's one of those books where you've got the main idea and you can just see that they've fluffed it out. Be very suspicious of 300-page books. But JR by Gaddis is still one that I've got like 70% and you're just exhausted. I've also got Theroux's book on food phobias. Ulysses is one I've maybe 200 and then dipped out. Gravity's Rainbow, sorry to say, I actually never finished it. And I don't think I can really do Pynchon that well. But in terms of fully completed, the most difficult, just for so many reasons, is Edmund Husserl's 2 volumes of Logical Investigations. That thing will just test your mettle like a marathon will test your mettle, right? Like, it's not the complexity, it's so many things at once. He's just so intricate, but then you realize the style has a purpose, and yeah. Any progress on the Landgren chat? No. Greer would very much be up for it, but it's very much, and I mean no slight to Land on this, he works on his own timeline. So if that happens, it happens. We're just going back to the miserable thing, like back in. It's not about me being miserable, it's about paying attention to the structure of the world and its misery. Just because someone talks about this does not mean they are miserable. Okay. I take it you can't really absorb this without feeling miserable yourself. Well, if you mean, can you hold a pessimistic worldview without... Look, pessimism and optimism are exactly the same thing. They're exactly the same thing. That duality just folds in on itself. Pessimists are optimistic about their pessimistic knowledge, blah, blah, blah. It's a very just flimsy thing. Like what? I just absorb this without feeling miserable myself. The pessimistic worldview is understanding that life is inherently bad, or at least if we think about it in terms of scales, is inherently more worse than there is good, right? I will say that the only conclusion that I could sufficiently draw from reading all of that was that which Mindlander came to, that I just could never find a reason why these people wouldn't just end their lives. Berger did. Mindlander did. Like, he realized it all and did it. And so you can do it, I guess, without feeling miserable, but I just think it's a false view. I just like a lot of this, you know, the classic one, if you want to go on the statistics thing, which I don't particularly like doing, because it's a lazy little quantified thing, right? But a lot of this pessimistic philosophy is drafted by Westerners who are living some of the most comfortable lives that have ever been lived in the history of humanity, right? And they will often you'll often hear like, all those people suffering in Africa. That was the one I heard a lot when I was young. And yet when you look at the statistics of the happiest countries, the most miserable countries are those where this pessimistic philosophy is born. And the happiest, whatever that really means, but if we're going to use it, then we use it. The happiest is those countries that they use as a justification for the well-being bad. Mindlander wasn't much of a pessimist since he believed that salvation was guaranteed. I mean, you know, I emailed the translator of Mindlander's work, and you know, he was in agreement with you there that ultimately he's an optimist because he found out it's all running down. But I think we can not be stupid, and we can say that if, how old was he? 26. If the conclusion of your philosophy is that you stand on a load of books and hang yourself, I think we can just conclude, we can play all these little games and say, well, he wasn't actually a pessimist. He just killed himself. Like, it's just stupid. That's just ridiculous. And he was. The idea that the entire purpose of life is just to die out and burn out. Come on. Like, well, no, technically, no. I'm not having that, you know? Yeah. As a fellow mustache haver, before that. Same guy again. It's easy to imagine worlds of abundance with no harm or abuse. I feel like you simply lack sufficient imaginative power. Well, what does a world with no harm look like? Is everyone going around going, wow, there's no harm? There wouldn't even be the concept of harm. There wouldn't be that. And no, I can't really imagine it, to be quite honest. We're like, I mean, it's heaven, right? Heaven, that's what you're talking about, or Eden. Thoughts on Huysmans? I've yet to get around to this Huysmans thing. I think I have a guest who wants to do this, but have yet to get around to him. Thoughts on Gary Lachman? Gary Lachman's great. I interviewed him about the Nicole book, and he writes really great, usually introductions to, you know, if you want to, like, I want to know about Steiner, I want to know about Nicole, I want to know about whatever it might be. He's like he's the Colin Wilson of our day. He's the Colin Wilson of our day. As a fellow mustache haver, what vibe do you think your mustache gives off beyond a sense of style? When I walk down the pavement, it gives off very much a, like, you know, people like pushing their children away from me kind of vibe. Like, that man looks fucking... No. It gives off a... I don't know what vibe it gives off. I'm enjoying having it. It gives off a bold style, I think. I don't know. What's my take on veganism? My take on veganism is that, like, if you take something like avocados, like, you go through there. Here I am, jukebox of opinions. My take on veganism. You can come at it from, like, there's 3 angles? Health angle, animal ethics angle, sustainability angle. A sustainability angle is just complete bunk. It's just complete nonsense. The amount of energy it takes to, like, transport an avocado out of season across the world, refrigerated, so that we can have a little avocado toasts, gone. And health-wise, unless, like, you have to be so on top of it, and you have to, like, utilize artificial like what is it, fortified yeast, or all these like heavily, I don't mean processed in the sense it's bad for you, because they're not all that bad for you, but like products that are then reliant on extremely resource heavy things, which kind of, those three elements of like sustainability, health, and animal ethics usually all gel together. And the ethics one, maybe makes sense, but just look around. Animals that are higher on the rung eat animals that are lower on the rung. You know, it's no surprise that for instance, you know, great, like John Michael Greer would say, like if you've done a load of spiritual stuff, you're feeling a bit ooh, go eat a double cheeseburger, like it'll sort you out. You know, Gurdjieff defended eating meat because like the spiritual reasons for this is that you can't jump too far on that. Jump too far on the chain, and like the spiritual reason for all the vegans basically becoming kind of airheads. It's like there isn't anything there that's close to your actual level. Of course, you can't be eating humans, but you're on the same level. But my thoughts on veganism is, I don't think I mean this in no rude way. Like if you've found that you can do it and you've been doing it for like 5-10 years and you're feeling healthy, and but I just found that the vegans I know get ill, and yeah, I think it's no, it's not for me. What do you think is a relationship between social theory and society? Did a century of critique make an impact aside producing further critique? Okay, the relationship between social theory and society. I think the idea is there, and then we write about it. Unfortunately, like, maybe I'm just too platonic, but I think the idea is there, and then there is like a vessel, like the idea of whatever Marxism was there, and then there's a vessel called Karl Marx who channels this into a text, and we, at the time, and then more so retrospectively, say like, look, the idea came from there. And as Greer points out, as someone like Spengler would point out, if Marx didn't write that, someone else would have channeled, and I don't mean like literally like getting around in a channeling circle like angels. Someone else would have channeled that idea. So like the idea that it's like the idea that people are writing social theory, and then someone goes out and goes, right, society, here's the theory, let's try. Like, no, these ideas are here, and they're like they're there, and then we write about it. This is sort of reciprocal thing going on. Yeah. Was there a second part to that? Oh, did a century of critique make an impact aside producing further critique? It made the impact that it made, I guess. To try pinpoint that's mad. And whenever someone tries to pinpoint, they're like, it's all due to this thing, I'm immediately suspicious. Same with like, as much as I love Wilhelm Reich, every problem is because of your bioenergy. Every problem is, I don't know, someone else, because of your chakras not being aligned. Every problem is because you can't grow a head of hair. That could be true. Think about it. Do you ever think organized religions cynically ride the discourse around the meaning crisis to evangelize? Well, I don't know if that would be cynical, because cynicism is the cynical destruction, or the we are above that. The original cynics, Diogenes, one of my top 10 of all time, and will never move from being in my top 10. Diogenes is that reflection of society that is cynically revealing what it values. So he's living in a barrel. He's being as minimal as possible. He's saying to Alexander, the greatest sort of civilizational man that ever lived, get out of my light. And he says, if I wasn't Alexander, I'd be Diogenes. This sort of reflection, I don't think that wouldn't be cynically ride the discourse, because there's meaning there. So it would be abiding by the very things that cynics are trying to be cynical about. And I don't know what it really means for organized religions. And I'm not trying to be too harsh about these questions, but like, the organized religion got together and they said, how do we explicitly ride the discourse? Like, that's not happening. And I think I don't know if there's, is there a meeting happening somewhere in let's say the Vatican, where they go, how can we use this to bring people in? I think theologically that's incorrect. The meaning, is this one of those myths, like the myth of disenchantment, the myth of the meaning crisis? I think so. I mean, there's the myth of the meaning. Okay, the meaning crisis. No one has any overarching meanings, and yet everyone's still doing shit. Everyone hasn't laid down and died. People are still going to restaurants. People are still starting relationships. People are still having children. Oh, the birth rate's going down. Yeah, because probably an evolutionary process, because the planet's nearing a certain type of natural capacity. But what they really mean is the meaning crisis is this overarching. Jacques Derrida says the history of philosophy is the history of finding a logos, right? It's finding the big grand meaning. That's what you're on about. There isn't a meaning crisis really, because like. Drinking this can of Coke means something because it means that I like yummy black fizzy water, right? Like that's a meaning, or is it not? So at what point are you drawing a line saying there isn't meaning? There isn't a meaning crisis. I think it's a silly thing to say. But maybe if that's what you meant, I've just sort of gone around the houses and said nothing, which is what I do. Whether you decide on a glorious creator or a glorious accident behind humanity or life in its origins, you choose how that affects your every infinitesimal moment. You choose. Well, maybe not. If it's a glorious accident, there might not be choice. Am I more of a hedgehog or... Now this is the big stuff. Am I more of a hedgehog or a fox? I say hedgehog. Yeah. Thanks, man. Will I do an episode on Nixon and or Kissinger? No, I mean, I could do a Kissinger one because he did that famous 10 rules, 10 laws. Noted you mentioned reading Anna Kavan's Ice. Should we expect a review at some point? I find her, it's great, but it's like Fleur Yegi. That book is tiny. It's like 130 pages. And I keep trying, and then something there just... like a great wall of ice. I just can't really get through. I don't know what it is. I'm not much into politics, but do you have any thoughts on Bowden? The only Bowden I've read is it's a very short one. Why I Am Not a Liberal. An intriguing little read, but this fetishization on the right of these figures and pulling them, especially with the social media bubbles that we see today, is that small figures appear far, far, far larger than they were with respect to their contextual historical bounds. I mean, at his height, Bowden is had a reach of maybe 5,000 to 10,000 people, and so this idea that Bowden is some huge thing other than Bowden is more than just basically giving relatively erudite BNP-esque talks in pubs. I mean, yeah, it's an intrigue form, but there's a lot of... I don't like the fetish. Everyone knows I don't like the return fetishization. Yeah. So, Dan Campbell's Fortitude. Thank you very much for the donation. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, please keep the questions coming. There will be a review of Anna Kavan's Ice. Yeah, at some point. There's also going to be a review of Fritz. What the? I can't remember his last name. Mars by Fritz. Is it Fritz Horn? Fritz Zorn, I think. Yeah, Fritz Zorn. Sorry. Yeah. In parallel with the Hedgehog Fox question, are you more a Varela or a Varela? That is for Sebastian Vorsch, a good friend of mine. I'm going to assume that that's who's asked that. It's behind the scenes. I'm more of a Varela. Yeah. What other reviews are on the way? Some people have asked about me reviewing films because I keep talking about Heat. There are some. I mean, I could probably do a good review of my favorite film. My 3 favorite films are Harold and Maude, Phantom Thread, and Leave No Trace. All relatively modern, other than Harold and Maude. But I don't know Don't know how I feel about doing film reviews. What is the most profound, unexplainable experience I ever had? I had an out-of-body experience when I was 13. A big RC plane, remote-controlled plane, slammed into. I was sat in the back of a car, and I was like looking out into this RC plane field, and it slammed down my side. And if it was like a foot to the right, it would have basically torn up my innards. And the strange thing that probably is explainable by neuroscience or whatever now is that my memory of that and my experience at the time was from somewhere else in the field. But I wasn't really that. I was like, oh well, fine, didn't die. Have I had any other unexplainable experiences? I've never seen a ghost. I had a fair amount of deja vu, and the more you notice deja vu, the more you get. Profound. No. And no, nothing major. I mean, when I was doing occult stuff, you have a lot of fairly odd crap happen, but you did various things, and you think, oh, okay, that one worked. Thoughts on Ari Aster films? So Ari Aster is like the new horror guy, right? And also Beau is Afraid. Am I right in thinking that? I can't look it up right now, unfortunately. Hang on. Let me look this up on the old phone. I'll look like a boomer. Is that me on there? Dear me. Ari Aster. Okay, yeah, I remember him now. So, with Midsommar, I like Beau is Afraid. I thought Beau is Afraid is up there with Under the Silver Lake for two of the most original films that we've had of recent years. Both masterpieces. Beau is Afraid went on a tiny bit too long. My comments on Midsommar and Hereditary, which also is, there's a film called, was it Woman? Was that the film? No. Another sort of pagan-y. Anyway, the point I'm going to make about Midsommar, well, it's not really a point, Midsommar and Hereditary, is that, I mean, there's a little bit of truth in Hereditary of what they're using there, and then Midsommar, there's a sort of, but this kind of seems, even if so in one of my favourite horror films, A Dark Song, which I mentioned with Ryan Duns in the recent horror video, is that the occultism in that is real, and it's not played up, and it's not really used in a way that's like abusing it as a, what we might say, the very old idea of like the noble savage. Equally, like Midsommar and Hereditary also aren't doing that. But what I just find a bit so in a way almost tasteless is the throwing of it in there to equate with like, this is really dark, this is really weird, isn't that weird, like a little pagan thing. And it's sort of, when you actually step back and think, well, why was that even used? Why does that actually need to be used as a device here, other than sort of abusing it for the sake of weirdness? And I think it doesn't even realise that it's actually moralising in a way that it can't see. But they're both great films, and he's a great filmmaker. So, opinions on some auteurs: Tarkovsky, Bresson, Antonioni. I haven't seen anything from either of the last two, and as much as I like Tarkovsky, much like people who say they're like olives, I will be the one to say that, come on, it's only few and far between that we're going to sit down and actually watch a Tarkovsky seriously. Otherwise, I'm snoozing. It's give me Heat, give me Tombstone, because I get it, but it's the equivalent. It's sort of like, it's sort of sitting down with a Deleuze book. I really have to be here now, and it's not always. It's primarily not actually what I want from a film. It's not. I don't think it. They're beautiful, they're absolutely beautiful, but is that what I want from a maybe I'm just lazy. Do I think the Great Flood happened? There's a huge history of Catholicism, multi-volume one, which does go into that. But what would Stalker's probably my favourite Tarkovsky, which isn't surprising. There's a student of Tarkovsky who's also really good. I always forget his name, but he did a film version of Schultz Sanitarium. It's fantastic. Great Flood. It's neither here nor there. It wouldn't change anything for me if it did or didn't happen. Do I plan on ever doing an episode on Nanavira Terra or early Buddhism? I'd love to do an episode on Nanavira Terra. I mean, I have his one volume of his 600 pages. I can't remember what it's called now, but some of the writing in there is fantastic. Really intriguing figure. I'd love to find someone who could talk about him, but it's going to be a bit of a difficulty. You often replace the T sound with D. Hamidics. Is this a Norwich thing or a Norfolk thing? D's. Do we? Yeah, probably is. Hamidics. Yeah, maybe. A lot of people say Hermetics, which sounds like a cereal. And then Bob Dobbs, bless him, says Hermetrix, which, and some people just misspell it altogether, and no one knows what it means. They do. There are people that know there is a podcast, and there are people that actually know what the word means. It's the 9th tarot card just squished together. Hermit, IX, 9. Put them together, you get Hermetics. Episode of Nagarjuna. Yeah, I'd love to do that one again. I probably will ask Jay Garfield at some point to do it on what is it, the Madhyamaka, the middle way. That would be intriguing. I mean, I read that and I was like, this level of scholarship is bad, because you read Nagarjuna and it's like, I have one of the few, I would say, not that I'm reading primary philosophy and saying I get it, but that was one of the few books that I've read where I've said there is absolutely no way I can approach this without commentary. Like where secondary was vital. Again, as we're in an hour in, the Christianity book is there with Aeon. It's going to be another one, Esoteric Introduction to Christianity, that me and Aaron French are working on, probably in 2026 with Aeon as well. My collection of short stories, As a Man Crying in the Street, is on Amazon. And I am at the Echo Sophia convention in Glastonbury from the 6th to the 8th of June. I will be around Glastonbury, so even if you don't go to the convention, it's my first time going there. My first time in Glastonbury. So even if you don't go to the convention because you have to email someone for tickets, blah, 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 I'll be in Glastonbury. So if you want to meet me, I'm not doing a meetup or anything, but I'll be around. So if you see a bald dude. But anyway, on the 8th of that convention, I'm giving a talk on spiritual seeking and suffering. So you have to find the details for that. Do you or are you watching Black Mirror? I like Black Mirror, and much like the horror that we've been talking about, actually, a lot of this stuff, it has to be sewn up. It's like, there's the episode, it made a point. As soon as it starts making more than one point, or the point is vague, I feel like it falls apart. And the recent stuff has been a joy to watch as visual media. It's like, flows well, these are all well made, but it just felt a little bit cheap in comparison to the early stuff that really was like, here's the single point we're making and we're going to hit that real hard. I don't know when I know there's some newer stuff coming out. I don't know when it's released. Any plans on a commentary about Zend Avesta? I don't know what that is. Is that a car? Did I get bored of the Yellow Hermetics title cards? A little bit, yeah. I found that I was enjoying just the creativity. Not that there's that much that goes into it, but the newer ones I find just a bit more palatable for YouTube, and say a little bit more than the yellow thing. And it's so far on now that there's probably 200 yellow things floating about on YouTube. But I did get a little bit bored of them. It was like, how many times can I drag something into this circle? Yeah. Is there any other? I don't think there's any other things to announce. The Discord is open. There's a link for it in the YouTube. If you go to the YouTube channel and you click on the about or the wherever the posts are, there is a Discord link. The main Zoroastrian sacred book. I've never read it. But I did. It'll be live in 2 weeks. Record a conversation on Meher Baba with Nicola Mashandaro. Meher Baba having that relationship to Zoroastrianism. It's kind of the first topic that's really, Given that you ultimately found yourself unconvinced by Christianity, do you have any misgivings about promoting a book about it? Yes and no. I completely understand what you're saying. On the one hand, it's been a struggle with the publisher in a way because spiritual seeking, these things happen. And then the book was sort of caught in the middle of this, and there was a contract, and it happened. Equally, whatever the truth is the truth. And one of the points I guess that I wish I'd, in a way, if I could go back, but that's not how anything works, expand upon more in that book, and one of the points of it is about, ironically, is about accessing or being introduced or accessing or going into spiritual traditions spiritually, and not via dogma, not via morality. And so the underlying point of that actual focus on the something more or the spiritual side is still something I would defend, or still something I would happily talk about. And so if people I don't think Christianity is a bad place to be. It didn't, it just didn't work for me. So it's a bit of a difficult one, admittedly. But I'm still happy with how the book, came out. It's a tough one, basically. And I get it. I get the contradiction of it. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Go for it. 300 episodes. 300. There's 7 years. Almost. 300. And there's like 100. And so I looked at the full video count now is like 450 or something. I mean, you could spend 400. Well, you could times that by 1.5, really. You can spend like 700 hours with me if you want to. If most of my high school teachers knew that people have willingly spent like 700 hours with me, boy, they would end it. The only award I got in high school was for a debate on the death penalty, and I can't even remember what I wrote. Good times. Any more questions? Yeah. Or anything you want to see on the podcast, not like generally. Yeah, and I mean, big thanks, Obviously, people will be listening to this later. So if you're listening to this later, episode 300, you're a listener. Thank you. It all really does help. All the donations and the slow grind. Thanks for all the support. It's really crazy to even think that we're at 300 after those early years of kind of struggling to get 4 episodes together. So basically, thank you. Which side of the debate did I defend on the death penalty? So if I can't remember what I wrote, but I think what my defense was that um was that certain crimes, very severe ones, should have the death penalty, but only after a new form of evidence was created. And this was like, so this is not what I'm defending now, and it really isn't. It's just not something that interests me. But this was like, 16-year-old James. And I was like, yeah, there would have to be this like watertight, basically like it's been filmed type evidence, and then fire them out of a cannon or whatever. Thank you for the kind comments. A Mishima episode. There's one. Okay, so there's one like planned, not to be recorded, but and it's Carlos Carpenter who I discussed. Diary of a Drug Fiend. No, Confessions of an Opium Eater with, and we've got like a list of like 6 Mishima books to read, including like biography stuff. So like to actually get to the point where I can do the episode for that is it's gonna be a lot more reading, and I need to read it all close by, so I've got that. But it's coming probably sometime this year. Yeah. Would I ever do an episode on Bardon? I tried to contact Ron. I think his name's Ron Clark about Bardon. I did want to do an episode. There's such a strange biography there. Really intriguing, overlooked figure. People aren't keen on Bardon because he's just like, yeah, you just follow this book. Like, it's pretty hard-ass stuff. But I would do one. I just need to again, like, those kind of people. It's very tough to find someone. Do you agree with the point that horror is inherently a right-wing genre, given that it deals with something out of place that shouldn't be there and our reactions to it? No, I vehemently don't agree with that. It's like, you think about Lovecraft's horror. If you humanize Lovecraft's horror to the idea that like this thing that is alien is seen as I don't know, an immigrant, right? There are very decent books about that experience from immigrants, right? Lovecraft's horror, or horror in general, is about that which is out for me at least. If we're talking about cosmic horror, is outside the bounds of reason, but horror is that which kind of shouldn't be, like you said, but in the sense that it's about something that's out of place, and conflating that to right wing. It's like the big terrifying demon clown from hell. This is a right wing. I was like, no, this isn't about that. This obviously isn't about that. It's about being confronted from, the dark transcendent or whatever it might be. It's just this whole thing of like watching something and just immediately conflating into something else. Go read that thing if that's what you want. Like, this is a great annoyance of people from both political sides, left and right, as if they needed names, trying to shoehorn philosophers into their camp, whether it's Nietzsche trying to drag to the left, or lefties thinking Nietzsche's trying to be dragged to the right, or Klager's being taken by the right, or whoever it might be. I always think, why do you need to do that? I mean, if you want a right-wing thinker, go grab a right-wing thinker. And it's very annoying. Or if you want a left-wing thinker, go grab a left-wing thinker. Or just say what you want to say and stop using other people's writing and ideas as like social proof, right? Like, well, Nietzsche said. Why don't you just say it? Like, just say the thing you want to. Why do you need Nietzsche's approval? You slave. Yeah, I mean, Nietzsche would have something to say about that, right? Ari Above. Houellebecq's book about Lovecraft argued that Lovecraft's racism and his horrific imagination came from the same place. It's quite different to horror itself being inherently right wing. Yeah, I don't like Houellebecq. This is a grotesque man, and my bubble burst moment for Houellebecq was that watching. I don't know if you've seen it, but don't go look it up. It's like this documentary thing where his wife is organizing prostitutes for him. And I just realized, like, no, none of this is a thing. None of this, it's just disgusting. Political or moralized readings into that side. It's disgusting. It's just a disgusting day. Oh man, I have no interest now. It's just completely burst the thing of whatever he's doing, and it's really a great insult that I tried to read Annihilation, and I go about 100 pages in. It's the greatest insult that after all, in a way, after all the damage he has done, by this cynical tongue-in-cheek bolstering of low-level, just, I don't know, whatever it might be, in whatever, or serotonin, that he tries to come to some conclusion about love, like very haphazardly and ham-fistedly. It's like, why would I listen to you? Like, why would I listen to you? And why would I take any of this seriously now? Like, discard it. Yeah, no interest for the guy, and like just no time for it. There are people who are doing that. Henry Miller, right? There are people who are doing that like in a qualitative, deeper, more interesting way. The whole getting into this the seedy underbelly, right? There are people who are doing that in very, very intriguing ways. Henry Miller, of course, my mind. I mean, hell, even Bukowski is better. I mean, take your pick. Easton Ellis, The Shards, go for it. I don't know what that Woody Allen. Yeah, oh, okay. So you're trying to relate that to the Houellebecq thing. Well, that's a different thing because Houellebecq is sort of the point was that there was a distance in Houellebecq where you thought that his commentary was from some other position and wasn't just deeply embedded in it, like basically loving it, and it fell that a lot of his books then I was like, oh, hang on, this is like a weird defense, a weird defeatism, whereas the Woody Allen, I don't like Woody Allen films anyway. They just never they never did anything for me. Will you have Bob Dobbs on again soon? Maybe. We spoke about chatting about Wyndham Lewis in a few months, so that could be fun. That could be fun. Suggestions for future episodes. Anything philosophy of life and phenomenology related. Still lots of unexplored, intriguing. Helmuth Plesner is like slowly going through the videos and taking notes. I'm there. And there's this guy, Sebastian Vorosh. He wrote a book about vitalism. And, he might come on again. We'll see. Okay. Any more cues from anyone before I go eat some pizza later on? But we'll see. Any thoughts on Sloterdijk and his work Spheres? I have Sloterdijk's Critique of Cynical Reason, because Cynical Reason is something that intrigues me to read, but I struggle kind of after it's very crass of me, after the years, or we could say the years in my masters of really tackling like books like Being in Time or Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, that when I sit down with these, it feels very, very strange, like a weird form of anti-nostalgia to be like, oh, you remember that? You remember like that anyone will know this who's tackled like Being in Time or whatever, these kind of big philosophies. It's like a thing, right? It's a thing to really get in that headspace. You can't just, Solenoid review would be great. I tried. Here's the thing with Solenoid. Look, I'm sure people are enjoying it. But here's the thing with Solenoid. Thomas Bernhard, who is like one of my favorites, top 5. Thomas Bernhard mastered a style. He developed, arguably created, I don't want to use that word, but he created, developed, and mastered a style. This Bernhardian, unbroken rant style, right? And Then there is like Seabold, WG Seabold, is that how you pronounce it? I've tried Rings of Saturn, didn't do it for me. And there's Solenoid, and then there's who won the Nobel Prize, John Foss. There's like all of these people who are using it, and just I've tried them, and no one gets close to Bernhard, and yet he's still kind of forgotten. He's still kind of overlooked. So like for me, when I'm reading Solenoid, I'm like, this is watered down Bernhard. I'd just go read Bernhard. It just didn't click for me, and it's too long. It's too long. I'm too old. I don't want to do it. Thanks. Okay, thanks for the kind comment. Thanks for my amazing work. It's very nice of you. Burroughs, is it Guyson, Robert Anton Wilson, Toppy, and 80s and 90s pop counterculture? Question mark. Burroughs, I think is great. Okay, Burroughs, I think is great when like Junkie, great novel. Another is a good example of the down and out like being right in there. Same with John Fante, After Dusk. Sorry, great novel and more intricate and intelligent than Houellebecq. Burroughs, however, like when you're getting into, I mean, I don't care for. I can't even remember the name of the bloody thing. But like, there's some that are in between. The Ticket That Exploded, Cities of the Red Knight, that trilogy. Those are overlooked and they're very good. But you read them in an intriguing way. But when you start getting into cut up stuff and like the full bore postmodern, like I'm not gonna sit about and read this. You know, Robert Anton Wilson, great. Prometheus Rising. Sorry, my memory at the moment is fading away. It doesn't have much energy. My memory at the moment. Robert Anton Wilson. Yeah, the Illuminatus trilogy. I found it a bit Kevin Smithy for me. I haven't read any guys in 80s and 90s pop culture. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you find a gem. Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. But a lot of the time, it's very surface level on that kind of thing. But someone said PT Pizza. It probably won't be a PT Pizza. I'm just gonna go, but the quality of it's gonna be good. I'm going to this place just down the road a ways. No, so I don't always eat PT, but like if I eat like this tonight, which is gonna be a non-PT pizza, then tomorrow I make sure to sort of do the repairs, right? Like the extra carrot salad, more coconut oil, bit of aspirin, and yeah, I mean you know, I'm not a dogmatist, and neither was Pete. Like, just enjoy your life, like, yeah. What else have we got? Keep them coming. I'm in a good mood. Yeah. Have I read any Darren Allen's fiction? Also, any recommendations of where to start Barry Long? I've read Fired by Darren Allen, which is fantastic, but I couldn't find a review for it. Like, I couldn't just, and it's not because it was bad. I just couldn't find a review. But it's yeah, really good. So I want to get Drowning is Fine next. I'm wanting to do a review of his fiction. He is a craftsman. He is a craftsman where it comes to fiction and prose. He's got an eye for detail which rivals like some of the greats. He truly has, especially if you're British. Any recommendations on where to start with Barry Long? Yeah, if you want like more practical stuff from Barry Long, then actually the one they just released, which is called Right Meditation, is actually one of the better meditation books I own. Then he's also got his original meditation book, which is like a 10-part one. So those are good for exercises or like meditations. Are very effective. But for the reading, Only Fear Dies is fantastic, and Ridding Yourself of Unhappiness. It's more of a difficult one to get, but yeah, they're great. Thoughts on DeLillo? Don DeLillo, that name that is around, that is something. White Noise, good, not great. Some stuff really stuck. Some really good ideas in there. Mao 2, yeah, good. 0K. Yep. Never could get through Libra. Couldn't do it. And there's a couple others I've read. But I feel like I'm in a hospital, like sort of derealized when I'm reading DeLillo. Yeah. So this happens with a lot of writers. Happened with Franzen, is that writers of an ilk will get dragged together, and it's not always right to do so. Like it's very difficult to see DeLillo not near Pynchon, Foster Wallace, Gaddis, right? So what's DeLillo when you can like mentally draw the line and separate him? What is DeLillo like? This is a whole different thing, and I think one of the problems I've always had with DeLillo is like I'm venturing in thinking of that, and it's not always the case. Land-Greer Druid convo. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Greer would be up for it. It's just it would mean getting land and getting it all organized, which is tough. Cheers, James. One of the only podcasts worth listening to. I didn't know there was any others, but it's fine. It's fine. I guess I'll just have to deal with it. One of the only podcasts worth listening to. You would say that, wouldn't you? Thanks. No, thank you. It's very kind of you to say. I agree. I would agree, wouldn't I? You know why? It's because if you want to talk about crap in a room with your buddies, go do that. Have I read Notes from the Underground? It's the only Dostoevsky I've read. And yeah, I liked it, but I have yet to be able to get through the rest like any other Dosto. Just doesn't click for me. Yep. I have no real major comment on it. It's really difficult to comment on like classics because what are you gonna say? I did read like occasionally, like the other day I read a reading. I read a rereading of 1984, which said that you can read Room 101 and the torturer, I can't remember his name, in 1984. This is from Jed McKenna. You can reread that as a book of spiritual seeking, and that actually Room 101 is the thing that causes the Enlightenment, is actually a good thing for Winston. Yeah. You didn't get my reaction to Houellebecq. It seems that he has interesting things to say regardless of his dalliances with sex workers. Yeah, he might. I mean, could we drag him out? I don't know if we could. I mean, what has he got to say? The world is sordid and miserable, and I'm going to indulge in it. And now I'm close to death. By the way, love is the answer. Yeah. And throw in a little bit of sort of prodding to get people a bit riled up. I don't. Yeah. Also, I mean, I think I'm annoyed because I saw that picture where he went to Thomas Bernhard's house and he's wearing Bernhard's jacket, and I just don't think he's worthy. I just really don't think. I don't think Bernhard would have liked. I don't know. Are you interested in political theory? I love your channel. Yeah. Need more Bataille content. Bataille's a tough one. I'd like to do. It'd be nice to do an episode on the Asafal. Find some people for that, but. Acid Horizon do a lot on Bataille, and in a way, I don't know if there's a lot of podcasts in the sphere, and it's rare you get overlap, and I do wonder to what extent people are keeping an eye on it, like I certainly do. I look because I don't not necessarily tread on one's toes, but if a guest has just done a talk somewhere else, I think, well, the majority of people who are in this sphere know of the sort of 4 or 5 podcasts that are known in it. So for the Bataille stuff, I would say head on over to Acid Horizon. I mean, they do a lot on Bataille. Yeah. Never impressed with the writing of Fuel by Kai. But yeah, I mean, it's a sort of new form of minimalism that, yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, I'm trying to think of like who would be a comparable. It's tough to think of, but who would be a comparable historical figure who we would now read their own, let's say, cynical kitchen sink thing of their time, who was really just was big but has since fallen away. It's because I don't think it's going to age at all. To be quite, I mean, he's a man absolutely of his time, and of a very tight thing that he's put himself in. Same with Bret Easton Ellis. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I mean, is American Psycho gonna make it out past 50, 100 years? I don't think so. Yeah. Am I familiar with the work of Lance Clement? What do I think about him? Familiar with the name, so I can't really tell you too much what I've thought about him because I only know the name. But I think Bernhard was big on Enjolras. I don't know why I'm thinking about Bernhard a lot, but I believe he was. Could be someone else, some aphorism guy. But yeah, so I will one more time. 6th to the 8th June. Echo Sophia Convention in Glastonbury. I'll be around Glastonbury. Like if you're just around, message me on Twitter and I'll be about. Man Crying in the Street on Amazon. Other books on Amazon. jdmeta.net website. You can find all the books and stuff on there. Greetings. What's with the manlet jokes on Twitter? I have no idea. But if they're about me, the average height of a British person is 5'5", and I'm 5'6". So technically, I'm tall. Think about it. Yeah, I haven't seen them because they've put them on the manlet jokes on the top shelf, so I haven't I haven't seen those. The one you do yourself. Oh, don't like the one I just made because I think it's funny. Yeah, manlet. I mean, I just don't think of myself that way. Don't get yourself down. Like, damn it, I just think it's funny. I mean, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you are born and you are a short, bald man, right? You need to fucking pull something out quick. My advice is start a philosophy podcast. That'll help. Because it's like, dude, own it. You need to own it. You like, it's just funny. No, I'm not pulling out existentialism. A more podcast related self question. Having done 300 episodes, are there any episodes that have really stuck with me? You know, so I've answered this in various ways this time. Okay, stuck with me. I'll reel a few off that I thought were the ones where I thought that. The recent one with Steve Nepper on Hope, I thought was great. The one with Abdul Hakim Murad. All the ones in the Hermetics Essentials thing, the playlist I've made. Especially Greer's one on cycles of history and consciousness. Greer's one on reason and religion after in the industrial age. Both of those, I just think that for me is what a really good conversation can be. A serious conversation. The John Cussons on Desire, somewhere really trying to just get to the root of explaining something without going into specifics, like Lacanian psychoanalysis with Bruce Think. I thought that worked really well. But the one actually that stuck to me is the one that's about to be released next week, which is on the self, on the irreality and the destruction of self, with an anonymous guest who wrote a little book. And I genuinely don't know who they are, even after Skyping with them, no clue. But it was just felt like such a natural, great conversation. And that's what, yeah. I mean, I'm getting a bit after 300. I'm getting a bit better at the natural side of things. Some people said, by the way, I want to sort of address this. Some people said that over Christmas and maybe like January, the some of the episodes I was a bit low energy. There's a couple of reasons for that. One I won't mention, but one was I was ill. Like I had something that just drained me over Christmas in January, and yeah, like I was just pushing through. I don't want sympathy or anything, but there was a reason for that, and I kind of about out of it. What do I what do I think of surrealist automatist way of writing? Does it have any merit? It's like there's a lot of these things around, like the cut up technique or the automatic writing, or I don't know, like polyphonic arrhythmic sound or whatever little trinkets and like and what would I say? Like when there should be a rule for this that the gimmick only gets one like the gimmick only gets one chance. So like it's kind of like it's like Duchamp's fountain, right? Marcel Duchamp's famous taking a urinal, putting in a gallery. You get to do that once, right? You don't stop mucking around. Like I get it. I get the point. Move on. And so when it comes to things like, oh, it's another thing of automatic writing. Yeah, all right, cool. You know, yeah. I'm going to Jena tomorrow, thinking of recreating the Hegel Napoleon horse picture with the church tower. I have no big book with me. Any chance of a Paglier episode? I don't know who I'd get to talk to about. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read any. I'm very averse and allergic now to anything too close to that little. Even doing that Jordan Peterson review was nightmare inducing, really. Yeah. Which philosophers are you studying most closely currently? Oh no. I have to reveal. No. Oh no. So the one you call it a philosopher is Nisargadatta Maharaj, who wrote I Am That. Is probably where I'm spending most of my time focused. I've also, like, in terms of Western philosophy, I've got Thomas Metzinger, but I'm not big on the whole reduction to science thing. Doesn't do anything for me. At a certain point, I plan to thoroughly study Wilfrid Sellars, but boy, that's a nitty-gritty thing to do. Why would you bloody go ahead and do that? Most closely, though, like, Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi, so you can see what direction that's taking. Other philosophers, reading Jung in preparation for an episode, specifically on dreams. Yeah. There's no. Yeah. That's it, like, majorly. Like, close study, yeah. I mean, someone's asked, what is literature? I can't, like, tackle that. Everything, all the years of study have escaped me. What is this? Am I okay? Is everything going to be all right, James? It's going to be fine. You're all going to make it. Please tell me I'm okay. No one's asking these. Yeah. Has anyone got any more questions? Otherwise, I'll wrap up. But these are always fun, and I haven't done one in a while. Oh, that's a good question. Who is the Max Stirner of our time? I mean, that's interesting because Max Stirner is like if you take Max Stirner's philosophy as his philosophy, then Max Stirner is the final say of all that. Arguably, Wolfie Landstreicher, right? Like the translator. Many of his writings are great. He's, as far as I'm aware, he is living that life as much as one can. Seriously. But if you mean that, I'm going to take this question a little bit differently. If you mean the feel of what you get when you read Stirner, that egoic freedom, Ran Prieur, I don't want to say these people are egoists, but like John Zerzan. I mean, arguably, yeah, maybe Zizek, but I just think he's tied up with too much other stuff to be too close to like Stirner. Yeah, those would be the two. Those would be the two I'll mention. McDowell is better than Sellers in the Pittsburgh school, in my opinion, but Sellers is the founding father. Okay, I don't know McDowell. I have to look into it. Thoughts on Kyoto School? Kyoto School on Zen. I mean, I have actually one of the episodes that's coming up is Miki Kyoshi's The Logic of Imagination. So adjacent, or Kyoto School adjacent, recently translated for the first time. So I'm chatting with the translator about that. But my thoughts are, I don't know enough to have a comment. The intersection of the utilization of Zen with the idea of void as a means. One thing that's intriguing, doing the Jordan Peterson thing, one thing that's intriguing with the Kyoto School is the non-bilateral relationship, in that Western philosophy seemed to sort of seamlessly enter, and they use it and have a great relationship with it. But the other way around, like Kyoto School, it's like there and just butting its head. Like no one's really addressing it here. It's not coming through for some reason, which is intriguing. I'm always intrigued as to why certain things manage to get in and certain things are just like known but not made through. It's super intriguing, and I think it goes back to the idea of like ideas, right? The ideas are first, and some are just barred, like ontologically. It's very intriguing. Byung-Chul Han or Zizek? A walk in the park, I think, would be my the third option. Byung-Chul Han or Zizek? I'm fairly critical of Han for non-content reasons. I think he's a little bit lazy. They both have that laziness, actually. Zizek, boy, takes some time to really get to. There's so much, too much guff. I mean, Sublime Objective Ideology, super intriguing, usually dragged out of its context. The episode I did on that, I think, was pretty good. I'd rather spend more time with Zizek. But, yeah. There you go. There's a roundabout answer. Zizek. Yeah. Yeah. Any more? Yeah, and as always, I mean, message me or email or comment anything you'd like to see. And if I haven't got round to it, I have a huge list, and sometimes it is just a case of some thinkers, it's a grind to find people. So if you have emailed me in the past, you think I've asked 4 times for you to do an episode on this, then I probably am getting around to it. I just have this huge list that, yeah, like it's a long grind. Yeah, I think. So with this, back to the Kyoto School question, it just from my understanding, so this could be wrong. The Kyoto School very much seemed, when you read it, they actually have a very they were very, very, for instance, Miki Kyoshi's Logic of Imagination. There are references in there to Bergson, to Spengler, to Felix Varvison, to Kant, to just such a wide array of Western thinkers, that the engagement is broad and deep and sincere. And yet the other way around, it just hasn't seemed that the Kyoto School has sort of come across in its same way. That's what I meant. Foucault or Derrida? Derrida. Which Bernhard book should I read first? Old Masters, Woodcutters, or The Loser? Yeah. All masterpieces. And his two best, but you read them later because then you've got this context, is his biography, Gathering Evidence, which is just incredible. And then a very early one called The Lime Works, which is very underappreciated, but is, I think it's up there with Moby Dick, but there you go. That's me. That's me. I'm just a dude on a screen. I'm just a two-dimensional little Eggman, you know? And you got to think about that. Yeah. I want you all to be happy. I want you all to have a good summer and enjoy the sun. And yeah, thanks. You know, I kind of forgot. This was for 300 episodes. Seriously, it's just kind of one of those things you're like, damn, we made it. We did. We did it. Way to go, guys. No, I mean it wouldn't be here without all of you listening, and following and supporting on the Patreon, and you know, being friendly and being a great audience and reviewing and all this and all the feedback. So it's astounding to me that there's been 300 made and that it's still growing and people are still loving it. Like, I am eternally grateful and thankful to every listener who's spent time with it, you know. So thanks. Gratitude to all. And I did see there's a final question there on Stefan. I don't know enough about him, but I'll add it to the list. Yeah. Details for all the other things, all the books and the Echo Sophia convention will be around if you look for them. But getting on for almost 2 hours of chatting. So thanks for all your questions. It's always a delight to hang out with you guys. And yeah, as always, thanks for all your support.